Northwest-Tel at its best. I tested it at 5 minutes before my live stream. It was going great guns and I thought, yay! And now it's sort of crashed. So hopefully we can get this through. Northwest-Tel is, we don't have a lot of options in Yellowknife, and there we are. So welcome to Shawna's Painting with Shawna on Thursday. I'm so glad you're here with me today. We're going to continue on with watercolor. Today I'm starting a peony painting that is 27 inches square, 25 inches square. It depends on where I chop it down when I square it off. If you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. I have a whole whopping 46 people subscribed, and when I get to 100, I'm going to figure this out first. I don't know if I can actually do this, I have no idea, but I would like to send out cards to celebrate that I have 100 followers, subscribers on YouTube when that time comes. If you're on Facebook, hit the like button, follow me, that's great. And I have a weekly newsletter where I send out pictures that you won't see anyplace else on my social media, because I kind of hide my photographs behind so that I can work with them and paint with them and not worry about them being taken by somebody else. You know, the internet is internet. My show is coming up in the end of October, and this little painting is a 16 by 16. It's my first glimmer, what's it called? Gilded shimmer. And it was my first attempt at it. Last week I showed you, or the week before, I showed you the other one that I did. And this is a fledgling grebe. Its eyes haven't even turned to red yet, because they have brilliant red eyes. They're totally beautiful little waterfowl. The other last thing before we get painting is Sunday at 6 p.m. The auction is completed. It's in the $50-ish range right now. So if you're really would love for this little owl to fly over to your home, just check on, I have it on Facebook. I will put the link in the video below, and I think it's in the last week's video as well, so you can go and find the link on for the eBay auction for feathered sage. With all of the sort of interruptions, we're a little late getting going, but we're here, and let's get painting. I'm trying something new today. I'm going to try and watch the screens for both YouTube and for Facebook. If you leave comments, I'm hoping that I will catch them. You can see I have the board here, and I have a picture of what I'm going to work on. There's a couple of things that I've been in preparation that I've been doing. One of them is I was trying to figure out what colors I wanted to use on this painting. And when I'm looking in the lighting that I have here, which has some yellow light and has some, has different kinds of light, I really thought this was a permanent rose, and that's what I was seeing. But I took this image upstairs to where the daylight is, and what I was surprised to learn is that in my Munsell book, which I only just bought after my last show, just the last couple of months, so I'm trying to figure out how to work with it. It turns out this image is a 2.5 red purple. Now I have the top of the image close to me because I'm working from the top of the painting today, and I was really surprised by that. So when I've set up my palette today, I do have permanent rose, Rose Madder, Quin Magenta, which is PR 122, which is this Munsell page. I have, what else do I have here? I have New Gamboge and Quinacridone Red, because in some of the areas I'm seeing sort of a orangey red. And what I found interesting when I went to put the pigment numbers here is New Gamboge has a little bit of the Quinacridone Red pigment that they use for making Quinacridone Red, which was quite fascinating. And I have some phthalo green, and I have neutral tint so that I can darken things, and I can use the phthalo green to darken the colors as well. It depends on what I'm looking for. And I have alizarin crimson, which is a darker red. So those are the colors that I'm going to be using today. And I was so surprised about how purple, how leaning towards the purple the reds in this flower were when I was looking at it upstairs. Now, I don't have I don't have this flower, so I can't actually compare it against the flower itself, which I plan to do this summer with my Munsell books. So I'm going to see where I can put this and see if we can leave the colors up so you can see that. Okay, and then I'm going to start painting. So I think the reboot seems to have stopped it from being silly. 5 minutes before I started, I tested it, and it was really fast. And then when I started, it crashed. It's like, really, honestly, it is the challenge of living in the far north. So I think I'm going to start here. Let's start here and see if you can see. Yeah. That's on the bottom edge of that. So I'm going to start with just the quinacridone. I start with a pale wash of colors because I don't really want to, as I've said before, I want to be careful when I'm going. That way, if there's a glow that needs to happen, I can carefully put on layers and layers of the colors. Take a little bit of, and just add some variation. I'm seeing variation in a couple of areas in here. There's lots, what I love about flowers, I don't know if you can see. Okay, so you're not seeing what I'm painting. So I'm going to move up and choose a different one here. How about this one here? What I am going to get is my paper to protect my watercolor paper from my hand. I'm also going to get this brush because this is fabulous for putting water in. I'm still trying to figure out what you can see, and every time is acrylic is easier because it's a straight on looking. Okay, so I'm here. This is super pale. Get some water on here. I use a squirter to put water on because I find it easier to manage my water carefully. So this side is a little darker, and then as we move to the other side, it's much lighter. So I'm just going to pull the paint that I have, and it's not really as light as I'm making it because I know that once I have other values around to compare, then I can darken and I can get to the point. Okay, and then I'm going to come over here. I'm just going to use this brush because I don't need much. And again, it's a very pale, one side is darker. That's what I love about flowers, especially flowers like peonies. The light just moves around, and there's all these subtle variations that just are so interesting to paint. Okay, I don't have this set to turn around at all because it's way too big and it just needs to stay still. So I'm just going to move around my board where you can see it. Some areas, okay, oops, knocked my head. Some areas are a little dark. So I'm looking for my, there they are, kneaded erasers. So if I see an area that's a little dark, I'm going to pounce back that graphite that I use, because I transferred on with graphite transfer paper. You don't use, so I can lighten it up, especially when it's in an area that it's going to be very light and there's not going to be a whole lot of change. Warming up the kneaded eraser. Sorry, I had to get up and turn my camera on and off so that I could put that timer on again so that it doesn't shut off on me like it has. So now I'm thinking about this one here. And so I'm going to lighten this line a little bit because I'm finding it too dark. And I don't want it to stand out. I kind of want it to disappear. So I'm gonna. Now I didn't get a chance to do the background. I've been working on that sweet pea, and I'm not quite finished the sweet pea, but it's finished enough that I just thought I'd get going on the peony. And next week I will have it cut, and I will show you what it looks like and how pretty it is. Okay, so I'm coming over to this petal here using that black velvet silver brush that just holds a lot of delicious water in it. And I'm looking at my shapes and thinking about what is the shape of the petal that I'm looking at. And if you're looking closely at this image, there's dark lines around, thin dark lines, because I was struggling to see it through the acetate that I use to put a grid over top. And so then I had to do that. And even with that, I still, when I was finishing the drawing, finalizing the drawing, I was like, oh, that's surprising. Okay, so no, I need a bigger brush than that. So now that I have a bigger area, I need a bigger brush to put the paint on. The brush size really does help. If I used a small brush on here, it would dry way faster than if I use a bigger brush, and I can move more quickly. With watercolor, one of the things that's really important is that you move quickly. So is anybody here? Say hello. It seems to be still working, so that's good. Okay. And what's nice about flowers like this is you can work here and work there and end up with it drying enough to be able to come back and do another layer onto it. This flower is definitely darker. It's not going to be as a pure tone as this layer is right now, but that's all right because we're just setting the stage, as it were. Yeah. Okay, nice big space, cleaning to the edges, coming to the edges. I'm not going to worry if I go over the edges. Now I can see that this has started to dry in here. And because I have a big brush and it's a little area, I can do that. But I have to be careful because I see that there's some lighter areas here. So I just basically cleaned my brush and made it like a thirsty brush. Took the paint off. Okay. So this one's probably dry enough that I can work around it now. Okay, move this up so that I can see what I'm looking at. So this is a petal here. The disheveled look of peonies, and I am really excited. I planted peonies a number of years ago, a couple or 3 years ago, and finally this year they're going to bloom. I am so excited. And we're going to get some wonderful hot heat in the next few days. So, you know, my basil's going to be happy because it can pretend that it's actually in grease instead of Yellowknife. Okay. Yeah, coming around here, and that's the shape that I'm looking at. When I see I have too much water, I just dry off my brush and I pull it back so that I don't get those really strange hard edges. When I first come back to watercolor, I get those strange hard edges and I'm like, all right, I have to pay attention to how much water I get. I can deal with them at the end when I let them dry, I let the painting dry. I'll let it dry for 4 or 5 days and then I will come in with a teeny tiny brush and make all those kind of corrections at the end. But you know, when you first come back, it's quite interesting how, okay, so that's still probably a little down. Let's look at, what am I seeing here? Interesting, I've missed a whole line here. Okay, where's my pencil? You know, when you get something as busy as this, it's amazing how you can miss an area and not even realize you've missed drawing in an area. Okay, so we're going to draw that there. And then there's a little bit of an area here as well. Okay. Okay, so let's go. What size are we doing here? Okay. I'm going to pounce back some of this darker areas in here just to into this little petal. I love the sort of organic, really organic shapes that these petals come in with. Hey Joy, welcome. That's great to see. I'm glad that you made it. And I'm glad it's working now because yeah, you know. I actually woke up one morning and realized that I had moved my my laptop for the live streams across the room. Not that my room's very big, but I think it started to impact how it was how it could get the Wi-Fi stream going. Yeah. So I moved it today and it's a little bit better, but hey Evelyn, welcome. How is it down and where you're at in in Ontario? So nice and light because this, oh, and I've put way too much paint on. I can see that I've done that, so I'm going to just bring in some water on my brush and move, because this is a light area. I don't want, even if it's darker than this and watercolor dries lighter, I want it to be as light as possible because I can make it darker. It's hard to make, especially with reds. Once they dry, they are pretty well solidly on there. And I see that we can do a little bit of some of this red in there, just for variation. So what's the temperature like where you are, Joy and Evelyn? It's going to be a whopping 28 degrees Celsius the next couple days. Yesterday it was 15. It was cold. We actually had to shut the house up and say, okay, no windows open because it was too cold. Okay, let's go over here. And I can see that my list doesn't quite make it in, so I'm going to put it over here. So you can see what colors I'm mostly working right now with the quinacridone magenta and a little bit of the permanent rose. Just in the setting stage point start. It's just okay. Okay, so this petal actually is really dark. I'm going to make it a little darker than, and I'm going to add a little bit of the, don't want to change it too purpley. Let's see if we can add a little bit of that green and see if that just brings it back. Okay. Yeah, there we go. So I've laid my water on here. I'm going to move so I can put my hand down. Woo! Now that's exuberant. That's what I want because this is in the shadow side of the flower. "24 in St. Albert. Oh, you're not very far from me. Oh, our borders are open. If people travel from here down to other places, we don't have to isolate if we have both our shots, our COVID shots. It almost did me in not to just get in the car and go down to see our grandson who lives in Fort Saskatchewan, not far from you, Joy. Stage 2 opening. Oh, you guys have had such a, like in Yellowknife it's been tough because we've not been able to travel, but we've had very little COVID here. We had a little bump not long ago, and I'm just going to take my kneaded eraser and bounce back those darker lines. And I added just water into here. Like I didn't do the water first, and you can see immediately that it just is staying in place. That's not what I want. I want it to float. So I don't know when we'll get to go to Edmonton because I am getting ready for a show, and it's a little hard to travel when I'm getting ready for my show. I'm kind of myopically painting. This is, I have to go and look. I will just take 2 seconds. Hold on. This is my painting day 90 that I'm working on right here and now. So I have a lot of painting days to go yet. I've only got, this is number 10 since I've started. And I take Wednesdays off because you do need a break, a physical break. Okay, so let's look. Let's come on over here and see what's happening here. We'll do the bigger shape of this petal. Okay, again, these lines are pretty dark, and I want to be able to see them. And I know that with my kneaded eraser, I can bounce it back because it is graphite paper. So let's do this shape here. I'm looking at, oh, is it a big one? I have to look at it upside right. It's a big one that's sort of torn in half. Ah, I did not know that. Let's take a little bit more back here then, because I'm going to be painting over. Once you paint over, I find the graphite then really sticks and is just there. So I just take a little extra time to make sure that I can, and I'm going to bring in, this is a bigger petal, so I'm going to bring in my silver brush, my black velvet silver brush, because it holds yummy amounts of water. I'm looking, and I don't know if you can see, I've got my finger right on where I'm at so that I can manage that. Oh, and I went and did the wrong brush into the paint. I don't want that. I want just to, okay, that's just comes this way. Okay. There's very little color on that. It's pretty light, so I'm going to be very careful. Okay, how pretty is that? Let's get going here. Okay, we're just going to put in, I don't want too much water because, and I can see that it's darker here on this side. And I'm going to dry my brush off and just move the paint around. There's all kinds of shapes in here that undulate and move, and yes, flowers are so pretty. Okay. Okay, so I want to stay away from this area here. I'm going to take a smaller brush for this area. And I'm just going to move that paint to where I want it to be. Now, if I've gone over, it's light enough, it's not a big issue at this point. And it's flowers. So, and I'm looking and I'm seeing where I can put a little bit of variation. I haven't put a lot of variation in yet because it's not that important at this point. It's just the starting point of thinking about that. And here, and oops, take that right off. Get a little exuberant with my brush movements. So I'm going to dry off. So you'll have to start thinking about a name for this one already, because I'm going to do that. Help me name the painting and receive a set of cards if you win. So just put that in the back of your mind to think about. Okay, let's pull back that a little bit. Now I can't go next to this one because this is wet, and if I put something wetter next to it, it'll pull it in and do strange things. So let's move. Can't do that one yet. How about this one here? Can we? Well, we're going to have to be careful when we get close. We'll just not put very much on there. Okay, so I'm going to wet it so that I can move that paint in there and fascinating. Okay, yeah, that's what it's doing. So I'm going to cover as much as I'm going to cover in our hour. I don't even know what time it is. What time is it? 2:38. Okay. 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 So I'm going to go a little bit beyond because I started a little late today because Northwest Tell and their patience. Okay, so I can see this area is really light. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to bring in, that's going to be too much. And I'm going to bring in some of that permanent rose into the bottom of this one a little bit. You can see how different it is for color. Just bring it down here to bring, and now I'm careful not touching the next one because it will pull it in and do strange things and I don't want it to do that. Holding my finger there so I remember where I'm at. Oops, I need a bigger brush. So some areas need a smaller brush, some areas need a bigger brush. So what is your favorite flower, Joy and Evelyn? I'm planning to paint geraniums and I'm planning to paint Jacob's ladders because I found somebody on School Draw that was growing them. And Evelyn, I still have those violets that I got from you all those years ago. Even I moved them when we had the oil spill and they were taking down the house. I moved them to a friend's garden and then moved them back. They're still establishing themselves here, but I still have them. All those years, you've been gone I've had those for a long time from when you lived here. Goodness gracious. How long has it been since you've been gone now? Okay, so we're starting to see, we're starting to set the stage because I think we can see this one here. So let's do this next big one. These ones are now dry enough, and this one's dry enough that I can work next to it. So let's do another big petal that's really pretty. I love the variations in these petals. "16 years. A rose. Do I have a rose painting that I'm doing this year? I don't think I've got a rose painting. I have to go and look at I haven't started drawing them yet. I have to actually probably maybe Sunday night I'll start to draw them because I want to get through that sweet pea and get that completed first. Oh, okay. Now I'm seeing more of that permanent rose. It's good to keep the names up here so I can see them. So I'm going to put a little bit of that permanent rose and then I'm going to super lightly move it down because I'm seeing it there, but I want to be I don't want it to be too much pigment in there, too much paint in there. And add some of the lovely quinacridone magenta. Such a pretty color. Rose and lilies. What kind of lilies? Because there's all sorts of different kinds. Water lilies or Asiatic, or there's so many variations of lilies. They're so pretty. I've planted early, and so they're blooming in their container, and I didn't get a chance to put them in the ground quite yet. We're working on that this weekend. Stargazers. I'm hoping that they'll survive the winter here because, of course, it's pretty cold here, but it's up against the house, south facing, so things seem to survive in that little garden better. So do you have a favorite color flower? Always interested in people's flowers. And Evelyn, your middle name is Rose, so that might be why Rose is your favorite flower. But what's the story behind why you love flowers? I have fuchsias that I only buy the real fuchsias with the white bibs, and my grandma Eleanor on my dad's side always had those when we went to visit, and I just thought they were the prettiest flowers. Now you'll see my other favorite is my other grandmother on my mom's side of the family, and she always had bleeding hearts. And I didn't realize that that wasn't her favorite flower because I was a kid, and kids don't pay it that much attention. But her favorite flower actually are geraniums. She's not around anymore. But I love bleeding hearts. So I got a bunch of plants, and I'm going to try and see if I can grow them in my yard this year. Okay, so that's not quite dry enough. So let's move. Okay, what am I looking at for shape here? Okay, I can't do that one yet. This is what the problem is when you start to paint. And often I just keep turning around and I'm working different sections, but that's a little hard on your eyes, and I don't want to make you seasick. Oh, pink color. Okay. I love pink. I do love pink. And so I have a really hard time not painting only pink flowers. Oh, I did not know. Well, I mean, I assumed your people had flower gardens. That's very cool. That's very cool. Okay. 1 second, I gotta start and stop my camera way up high. And start it again. Okay, there we go. Start that timer again. Okay. Oh, move that further. I have to use a stepping stool to get up high because the camera is so high. Oh, fave colors are all colors. I love the roses that have like a variety of colors in them. Oh, they're so pretty, and they're lots of fun to paint as well. Okay, so where are we at? The other thing I do when I'm painting like this and I want someplace to dry is I'll hit it with a hair blower, but I don't want to break your eardrums. And the hair blower is on the other side. Okay, so maybe this one, no, that's not dry enough. You can feel the coolness, and when it gets to a certain point, I think, okay, I can do that now. What am I looking at there? Okay. So that's this here. Get a brush that holds water. That would be helpful. This is 33 inches square. It's quite large. I cut it larger than the painting because it's watercolor, and I don't think you can see, but I have staples around the edge to hold the watercolor to the board that I have it on. So I always do it larger. This painting will be displayed in a 25-inch square center, like the matting, because I have exhibition frames. But what I do is I always cut it larger to give more space, and it allows me also to crop. It gives you a little ways to crop things so that it looks the best in the frame. But it's supposed to be 25 by 25. I always give it extra. So it means when you buy the painting, you buy the painting and then you get it framed so that you can have what you want. And this paper rolls up. I can send it anywhere. I can send it anywhere. I just roll it up, put it in a tube, and mail it off. My Morning Kisses, which I just put on with a picture of it on the collector's mantle, that one went to Nova Scotia, just rolled up, and then you just take it to your local framer, and they unroll it and they frame it for you exactly how you want. And even if you live in Yellowknife, I do the same thing, because you're going to see that. Okay, so yeah, I think we can do that. Because everybody has a different way they want to frame things. They know exactly what they want in their space. So the exhibition frames are all the same. They're black with a creamy white matting, simple matting. So they look great on display. They look cohesive on display. But then, people can put their personal touch to it. So I'm just really going between the quinacridone magenta and the permanent rose right now. Seems to be that's what I'm seeing, and that's where I'm spending my time. I haven't come into the areas that have that little bit of sort of orangey red that's really quite pretty. I haven't gotten there yet. Okay, where am I? I'm here. Okay. So a smaller petal, and I have a smaller brush. So I flow between my different size brushes all the time, sort of intuitively and not even consciously. I just do it. And I can see that we have some interesting shape in here that I could just, so you guys can see that. And I'm just going to put it in lightly. There. So this is the biggest painting I will have at my show. The other paintings will be 16 by 20s. I have another one that's still at the gallery from last year. It's a 22 by 22 by 30. It's a beautiful orange dahlia. So I just thought I would do this one as a large one, and I would then sort of play with the 16 by 20s and see what I can do with those. Okay, so that one is done. Now I'm moving my hand along and I'm looking to see where's the next petal. So there's an area here. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So this is the next petal I'm going to focus in on. And I can see that I only see, I see, okay. Is that, it's hard to tell sometimes if it's part of the petal or if it's another petal, because there's so much going on in this little space. And I mean, you can see that the image I'm working from is not very big. That's all right with flowers. That's not a huge issue. When you see me painting my acrylics, I actually work site size, because, oh no, that's the whole thing. Ha ha ha. I see it now. And I didn't, okay, well, there you go. I'll have a dark line in there. I've sort of set it in place now. This is a bigger petal. It's got so much nuances in it. I couldn't see that it was until I'm working closer. I don't track hours because of the way I paint. It is a very time-consuming process, because I layer and layer and layer, and so I think just for my heart, I don't actually track the time, because it can be a little disheartening when you realize you've spent this many hours on something and you've only gotten this far. And you can see in an hour what I can get accomplished. So it's a lot of hours. It's a lot of hours, but that's all right. It makes me happy. And, you know, I have a bit of a perfectionist in me, maybe more than a bit. So, you know, I just work away and I do my thing and, ooh, yeah, let's bring in some of that pretty other pink in here. Yeah, there we go. So nobody's watching me in YouTube. Hello, YouTube. Is anybody there? I'm happy that you guys are here from Facebook. That's great. And I'm glad that I stopped it and restarted and rebooted because that was annoying. Okay. This has all sorts of interesting areas in here that just have to be very carefully thought about. There's dark areas, like this area is going to be a really dark area. Now the picture that I have using for my notices is the same flower, but it's not the picture of the flower, and I looked and looked and looked to find the actual picture that I printed off ages ago to use, but so you can't even look at it and see, you know, where the darker little bits and the cast shadows and the subtlety are. Yeah, you know, painting is all about process, and it's about, you spend a lot of time in solitude working away. I listen to podcasts, so I listen to movies over and over and over again. And I do about 6 hours of painting a day for most days. And I paint 6 days a week. Saturday and Sunday I split my painting time on purpose. Okay, so there we go. That's dry enough now. Okay, and so I've had to set a proper schedule because what I was doing was I was painting way, like I did a couple years ago, I did 102 painting days, working 6 and 7 and 8 hours of painting a day, and I stand to paint. And by the time I finished for my show, I was so exhausted I couldn't get up off the couch for the first week, and then I could sit. It was, and I just thought, you know, I need to come up with a better plan for my time. So now I start earlier to get ready for my show, so I still get my 100 days in, but I take Wednesday off because you still need to get errands. I still, you know, am part of a household. So I run my errands and I get groceries, and I try and make my appointments for on Wednesdays, and I take that day as a physical day. But I have to say, the truth be told, if I get my errands done fast, I come down and paint so that I paint 7 days a week. But Saturday and Sunday, I paint Saturday until about 3-4 o'clock, and then I don't paint again until Sunday at 7. So I can do things like clean out the center of the car and have a social life, because I do like having a little bit of a social life. And that seems to be a schedule that is a better sort of, when I finished the show in February, I was a lot less tired. I wasn't as exhausted. Mind you, I had started the preparation in June last year and then had to go, I went and supported my parents in some healings that they had to do because they just needed my help. And so I just dropped everything and went because that was super important to me, and someday my kids will have to do that for me. So somebody will have to, because you never know what life is going to throw at you. And so then when I came back, it was just after Christmas, after New Year's, that I got back to painting. So I had like a 6 weeks that was really intense. But I wasn't as tired because I took care of myself better. And I don't actually ever know how many paintings I'm going to get done. I do know that on, what's the date? August 20th, I stopped painting flowers. So if I see that, 2 days before I got a flower finished, I know in 2 days I'm not going to get another painting done. Then I'll just switch over to painting birds. And the first painting I'm going to do of the birds actually is a snow sculpture. So I'm going to be painting snow as my very first one with ptarmigans on it. Yeah, so I'm quite excited about that. But first, let's just stay focused in on the flowers. So I'm going to give maybe another 5 or 6 minutes of painting, and then we'll wrap it up, because I don't know how long my feed has been going. I didn't put a timer on and because I ran into problems. Anyway, so I'm going to do the tip of this petal. There we go. And it's really dark, so I can be a little bit more exuberant with it. I'm going to be super careful. The ptarmigan, the streetwalker ptarmigan, has made it to its new home in Louisiana. It's a good thing I painted snow all the way around it so it can stay cool, because it's pretty hot there. Yeah, and my auction is going for the owl, and it's the last auction I'm going to do until after my show now, because I don't paint small paintings very often. I can see that I can do that even a little darker. So let's just add a little bit more intensity in to give it. And I'm moving my brush much in the same way as I'm seeing the petal moving. So I try to emulate the shape that it's doing when I'm moving the paint on, because the paint will move around and will move in the shape that you make it, like that you paint it. Thanks, Evelyn. Thanks for coming. It was great to have you here. It's actually nice to talk to people on the other side. It means I feel a little less like I'm in solitude by myself. So just a few more minutes. Ooh, this one here. I think you'll be able to see that one here. This one here gets to use some of that orangey red. So I'm mixing up the new gamboge and the quinacridone red. And I'm going to put in a little bit of the permanent rose. And let's lay that down. Now, here it is. We're going to put some, and we're going to get that glow. Because I'm layering, I can start, oh, it's got a little bit of the paint left over, which is fine. I can put a little bit of that new gamboge in the corner, just to let it float and be bright in, and it will glow through the process as we go along. And I'm going to put a little bit of that. Yeah, put a little bit of the permanent rose with the new gamboge, just a little bit of new gamboge in it to bring down. And it's quite intense, this one, so I can have some fun here with creating that glow. Yeah. And maybe a little bit of the rose madder. Okay, and I see I didn't bring my water all the way up to the edge here. So I'm almost done here. I'll just finish this petal and then we'll call it quits this week. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. There we go. There we go. Okay. So we got a little bit of purple. I can see that purple right there. Okay. The only thing I'm going to do is just soften this little yellow line so that it's not quite so there. Okay, I think that's good. Well, thank you. It was a rough start. This technology stuff, hopefully it'll get better as time goes on. Remember to like my page if you're on Facebook, or go and subscribe on YouTube. I'd like to get to 100 subscribers. I'm at 46 right now. Very exciting. And I will see you next week. I'm pretty sure I'm going to still be working on the peony. You'll see it much further developed. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, thanks for joining me. See you later. See you next week.